Good, lovely evening to everyone. My name is Ramzi Masri. I'm going to be your host tonight. Welcome to another Izaka Square Table, live from the office of Vodafone Ziggo in Utrecht. We hope you enjoy with us. Today's Square Table is under the title of Cybersecurity First Strategy. Before we start, I have some housekeeping to do and some announcements. So please, once you log in, make sure that the first name and last name on your Teams is the same as the ones you registered with. This is for CPEs. Stop sharing your video. This is for the quality of the webinar. And also, this webinar will be recorded. So for GDPR purposes and other purposes, we would not like you to be presented in the recording. So if you don't mind, please stop your camera. For the questions, we asked our speakers tonight, and they would love to have the questions at the end. So send all your questions via text. I'm going to moderate them. Maybe sometimes, if two questions are duplicates, I'm going to make them one, and I'm going to present them at the end of the presentation. For now, I have one more important thing. We do have 16th of November. Please mark that date. We have a great event for you, risk event for 2023 from Izaka. We will have this year big speakers. And also, for the moment, we have more than 550 plus registrations. The agenda is online. There is a possibility for group reservations. A lot of information you can find out, but don't miss that event. It's one of the biggest events across Europe this year when it comes to artificial intelligence and cybersecurity, ethical use of artificial intelligence, and why it matters to you, whether you are an information security officer or an auditor. For more information, you can, of course, go on melder.nl/risk event 2023. Double check it. It's on the let's say, the screen. I'm going to leave it for a second or two just for you. But again, if you didn't register yet, please go ahead and register. I think it's one of the best events that will happen this year. And also, since I'm putting the sales ad, next year, we're going to also have another event for risk, most probably 16th of November. So mark it in your calendars. If you cannot attend this year, next year, we want to see you. Without further ado, I want to introduce our two speakers. So I'm going to start from the left. You have Robert. Robert is the manager of fraud and abuse at Vodafone Ziggo. And we have also the CISO from Vodafone Ziggo, Julia. I'm sorry that I don't the last names because my pronunciation would be bad. So it's better to allow you to introduce yourself.
Fine, thanks.
And then maybe you tell us a little bit about yourselves for a moment. Then we go to your presentation.
Sure. Robert Pangamanan. I'll take in the last name, of course.
Yeah.
So it's easy for me. Working at Vodafone Ziggo and its predecessors for many years. Just talked with Ramzi about the Liberty Global part and also being at the same office at Kabelweg. Committed to making it a bit better every day for when it comes to security. And I think I really found my niche, so to say, what I like, and that is cybersecurity and also the resilience part of that. And since 2.5 years, I think I'm working with Jurre closely. So and now we're here. Live and kicking at Izaka Norea, so it's nice.
That's nice. Just a bit of trivia. I used to work up till yesterday evening in the group. It's okay. Yeah. The group that is part of the Ziggo, part of Vodafone Ziggo. And today I got moved to another company. But still, it's nice to see colleagues and talk. And we used to work in the same office. I didn't realize that except today.
I didn't either. So yeah.
Jura, can you tell us a little bit about yourself before we start the presentation?
Yeah, definitely. And it's a great honor being here, of course, for the professional organizations. I'm both a member. I've started at Deloitte as an IT auditor, later working as a CISO at VGZ, and now here for 2.5 years at Vodafone Ziggo. And working greatly together with Robert, and I think that talking about the security first strategy is a great opportunity for us to share some information and knowledge with our community. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Great. Then without further ado, please take over the sharing. I will disappear from the screen, guys, but I'm still in the room. I'm on the other side just to take your questions and moderate the chat if needed. And if anyone has any problems technically, just send over the chat. I will try to help.
There you go.
Yep.
Yeah.
There we go. About the security first strategy and why it is so important. Maybe first talk a little bit about what it is. For me, security first is about a awareness strategy. It is about an attitude which we want to incorporate in our organization. It's about a mindset. It's about what we do first, and it was necessary because the things that I saw when I started here at VodafoneZiggo weren't something that you could relate to. What is actually necessary. Everybody was telling cybersecurity is one of the most important things, but the moment that you were asked for, well, okay, then just do it and let us all do the right things, then people were talking about cost, were talking about this, talking about that, all different things, which I think is not living up to what you really are mentioning. So what we discussed, Robert and I, was really a shift in attitude, and what we thought that security first is something that is really resonating with the people. It's something like safety first. It is really something that you can align yourself on. It's a mission-based thing, and it really helped us really making sure that everybody within our department, but also across the whole company, made sure that it was something that they can relate to. It gives you, and I think that if when you're in a room, it gives you a clear picture. It gives you something that you can hold on to, that is so clear that actually everybody can understand it. So that's, for me, that's security first. And that's something that I want to talk to you a little bit about. We are doing this together because I think it's more than fair that Robert takes his side, because he's the guy who's taking everything into action. I will talk a little bit about the first two parts, which is more about what is it, what is it not, what was important on it. And Robert is talking a little bit more about how, in the third and fourth part, is taking it into action, and what are certain things that you can do first when you go to your company. I see a hand being raised, but is that something that we take questions afterwards? Is that something that does it sound good? Because
any questions you have, please send it over the chat. I'm not in picture, but I'm here. I'm listening to you.
No worries.
And if there's anything we can help with, please do.
Okay, but this we're going to discuss 4 parts here. It's I'm not going to have a lot of slides for you. Everything is being made within pictures, so please stay on with us. I think we'll have a very nice story for you to tell. But first, and I think that every journey starts with a bigger why. Why is this so important? Because if you have a very clear why, then you can talk to people about why this is so important. So we first needed to make sure that there's a very clear need for a change. When we looked at the past several situations in which we were, we saw that people were talking a lot about cybersecurity, and also across the board were saying this is the most important thing there is, but they weren't really living up to it. So what we said is, well, we really should create certain momentum when there are incidents, when there are certain products to be launched, that we have certain pen tests for those kind of things, that really a change was being made. So we defined a very clear where we are now and where we want to go. And that was really set in stone. So we really want to make clear that this is not something very vague, but it is something very clear. We really made a few scenarios in which we said, okay, first it is now this, and we wanted this to be. And that could be when there is an incident, not so much that afterwards in the evaluation will become a full pack of action list, but really doing this together, and not just throwing up some actions towards the IT department, but really sitting together like in a purple team, in which we are collaborating and where we're discussing certain aspects. So a mind shift is coming also from the inside, from my own department, but it's also being brought to the company as well, because there's also should be a way of thinking and a way of working on this topic. So the first thing is to be very clear on the change, and also being and owning the change. The next thing is then, how do we communicate about this? There are several ways you can communicate about this. Well, at first, the primary thing we did is posting a lot of intranet messages and discussing a lot on the Jammer post, but we didn't saw the effectiveness of that at all. So we really had to do different things. We saw that we didn't really touch their hearts. It was only nagging on Yammer, and not so much really bringing things to the next level and really making sure that this is a community problem. So we really wanted to make sure that everybody felt like they also had a problem. That is why we first start thinking about, okay, how do we make sure that everybody feels it's also their problem? That is not a security problem, but it's also their problem. So we conducted several surveys. We did some sessions with the top 70 of our department, and multiple sessions in which we discussed several incidents. We did at length, an hour and a half, we did sessions with the top 70 of our company, making sure that there's also a behavioral change and a culture change, which was really being established at our company. But communication is, I think, one of the main topics that we really took a lot of things about. Because maybe also good to mention here, VodafoneZiggo is a company with 8,000 employees, approximately more than 4 billion of turnover, and has also, I think, 8 million people within the Netherlands have one or more products of us. So it's very important that all our employees are very aware of what they are doing. If they are processing any information, it's so important that they will make the right decision. So we thought that if we are able to establish a very clear communication program, we invested a lot in a plan about communication, because it was quite ad hoc, and we really created an agenda and a calendar and a very strict plan, which we stick to and implemented in our company. We had a lot of help with that, by the way, from internal communication. Robert will get a little bit deeper into that. One of the important things we did is first reframe and rethink certain aspects. And the first thing I really wanted to rethink is that the employee is most of the time being thought about as the weakest link. Well, we said, okay, we really should rethink this, because it has a very negative connotation, and is also not very enabling our employees. So what I really try to do and make sure is that they are not the weakest link, but they are the strongest link. Because in the end, they are the last defense of ours. They are the ones that are clicking or not clicking on that link. And we should be very critical of ourselves, because if a very strong and important topic of security first is that we invested a lot in tooling. Tooling is a very important topic, so firewalls, for example, but they together and on a preventive matter implement a lot of preventive tools. But then again, they can always slip 1 or 2 emails across, and that's enough to get a data breach. So for us, it's very important that we invested in prevention, but also knowing that if something slips through, that our employees are actually a very strong link, because they act on the right matter. So investing heavily in tooling, that's what we actually did, not only in prevention, but also in detection. So I think still again, emails needs to be detected as fraudulent. We need to filter them out. We need to do a lot of preventive measures to make sure that the employee also can make any mistake. And thirdly, what we also did, it was also a great mindset shift within this company, is that we didn't make it about IT. We didn't make it so much a technical problem, but we made it more a company problem. So everybody has a problem. Once we are infiltrated, once we are being hacked, or once we see that, then we see that it's not an IT problem, but it is really also all your problem. So one of the things was, and Rob helped me out, before I came, there was a slogan that security is your business.
Yeah, we used to have a security is your business slogan. But hey, that is a sort of shortcoming, so to say, within the organization. So that's why we said, yeah, we need to change that, because if you look closely to that slogan, you'd actually try to make it someone else's problem. And that's why we actually thought about to ourselves, okay, we need to make that mind shift.
You really need to make that mind shift. And so also not making it about IT. But okay, then the question from how do you do that? And that's what I already mentioned, that we really want to make it enticing. We want to make it we really want to seduce people on doing the right thing. So not so much about punishment or penalties, but really seducing them to do the right things. So certain aspects that we did is we really made sure that we set very strict targets, and if those targets are being met, then we really celebrated those targets. And like, for example, we've had when we started quite high phishing rates, click rates, and now we are in single digits. So for us, that was a very important target that we set. We have also targets about response rates. We have various targets we set, and all to make it enticing, but also make sure that it has a very positive connotation. And so if we really want to make sure that everybody is being held accountable, but also making sure that we are enforcing the message by mentioning the positive aspects. And I think an important topic here is, and that's something that is also as auditors or a security professional can relate to. I think it's a very important topic is assessing these kinds of threats, these kind of things we are doing now with our employees. It should be really important that we keep measuring where we are. And so I just mentioned already the click rates and everything related to that. And I still think that is very important. I think that all of you as you're sitting here are doing that, of course. But I think it's really important that you keep on assessing that. It is important that we keep on measuring, because what gets measured gets done, but it also gets better. We publicize them. We publicize them on our boarding, on our TV screens across our offices, and to really make sure that everybody that it is visible, not only when the click rates are positive, but also when they are negative. And we do that across everything. We do it also about incidents. We have had multiple, and it's not being told by me, but it's also being told by people from compliance, by HR, by the CTO, by several people, why they think what's important. If it is about passwords, if it is several topics which you can relate to this topic. And it's very important also that we include these people in the teams. I already mentioned that this is a team sport, so it's not only about security, but it's also about HR. It is about internal communication. It's about audit, but it's also about compliance officers. Because I think it's very important that also these rules are part of the solution. This can be only about security, and everybody has a problem if things go wrong. So for me, it was also very important to make this really a team effort and make sure that we also celebrated the assessment scores if they get better over time. And last but not least, I think it's very important that we have champions addressed in our company. That was something that for me was a very important topic, because I think that if you keep on telling it from your own perspective as a CISO, you become a little bit of a nagger or a naysayer within your company, only telling what can be done. Well, I think it's very important that we also state a positive message, that it's also that we have champions in our business, which really say, okay, this is the right behavior. This is what we really wanted to see. And this is really the change we want to make. I think that this is on a very high level how we build the security first culture. And I'll hand it over to Robert to tell a little bit more about what he actually did and what we also didn't do. Because this is a...
Yeah, thank you. Nice overview, highlight. Security first. This is the strategy we currently have. So on cyber, security we want to be first, but not only to embed it in the organization. So to make clear, it's for our services, it's for our employees and our customers. So on all different levels, we want to raise the bar on making it our first priority. We set some goals, and those are goals that can be very large, but we also decided to chop them up in small pieces. Why? Because we noticed that we are currently in a very large transformation, and we are missing out when it comes to agile working. Probably a bunch of you in the call will work agile within your companies. What we encountered was that we set some goals, but we were not engaged to the development teams. We were not engaged to all the others within the company. So what we also did is that we set some goals. We start working agile and making sure that there is always security first embedded in what we do. So making sure that everybody within our organization, so it starts with us, of course, make sure that the goal is always about being security first. You need to make sure that everybody is on board. It is pretty difficult when you are a large organization, 8,000 people, 4,000 externals, So in total, we have about 12,000 people working for VodafoneZiggo. And you need to make them part of your goals. Like Jure said, what we did is we started at the top. So we needed to embed that security first feeling, so to say, ownership at the top. And we see it's a constant and it's a day-driven task we have together, is that we actually are making steps in this. And we see that the security first mentality, as we call it, or culture, is taking part of what we more and more do. Sometimes I like to talk about it as the security ABC. So security has an awareness part, security has a behavioral part, and security should be in your culture.
It's also very good when you know when you're on the right track is when our CEO is also mentioning security first.
Exactly.
That's when I knew that.
Exactly. So we were at the right spot. So like you touched upon, it was a good feeling that the board actually took over security first as a sort of slogan. So that means that we are on the right way. And we don't need to make it complicated. We don't need to make a pile of books, policies that are lengthy. No, we're not here to do a table exercise and write stuff. We are here to do. So what we do, it does matter, and we want to execute.
It's also something that we should go further upon, because I still think that we have way too much policies, way too much documents. Maybe this is not a very popular question for this audience, but I really like very crisp and very small policies, and only policies that are enforced and are enforceable. Because we have now, I think, tier 2 policies are 15, and then we have 150 on tier 3. Well, it's totally not enforceable. So
and
it's
we
really
do reviews every year.
We also need to be a little bit vulnerable that we are still not there. So we really should make a step up on this, and that's. But hopefully, throwing policies away will take less effort on the drafting.
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, that's why the picture is there. All these policies also mean that you need to review them constantly. They are lengthy documents at certain time, and sometimes it deviates from the true thing, and that is that security should be first. Then this is very important. We need to stay focused. We should not lose. We should not deviate from the path. So we are on the right track. Make sure that everybody has that same feeling, and make sure that you repeat this constantly. So it's sometimes it might feel that you are nagging about certain things, but try to make it again positive. If you repeat it more often, it will stick for sure. And we see that now in the top of our company, we see that in the board, we see that in our teams, and we see it more and more in the agile teams. We struggled a lot with being part of all the agile teams within VodafoneZiggo. I think we have over 100 squads when it comes to agile working. Well, with the size our current security department is set up, you can't be part of all those, but you can influence them by making sure that you address it at the right level. And we are actually part of now the end-to-end stream, so to say. And I think that's a very well accomplishment on the security first strategy. And this is a nice one, you need to experiment. Constantly keep experimenting. And also encourage your department and all your people we work with to experiment. And it's not bad to fail sometimes. Actually, it's very good to fail. But make sure that you move forward on it. So don't make it a punishment exercise, but make sure that we learn from it and grow from it. I think that's the most important thing for me currently, is that we are really taking steps as a company, that we dare to experiment. And that's really, really cool.
What I really liked about your approach is by experimenting is that the thing you did with the people who repeatedly went wrong, because you mentioned this positively, because you can say, okay, 50% of the people clicked, but you can also mention that 85% of people didn't click.
Exactly.
So they did the right thing. So we're focusing on the people who are doing wrong things, which is actually in a percentage a small group, of course. In absolute terms, it's a lot. But what I really thought was a strong point of view is looking in, are people now multiple times behaving in the wrong manner?
Yeah, exactly. So the repeating offenders, so to say, is where we target them. But we also like to address, again, in the beginning of Jure's presentation, the people are the strongest link. And if we emphasize that a bit more, you can always focus on the repeating offenders. and take them and single them out and make sure that you train them well. But do not forget the people who are the majority of your workforce will act upon, so to say. Yeah, and number one, it says more than enough. It's not about Max Verstappen, but this is about us. No compromises. So we do not compromise. Security first means security first, and this is of course a very difficult topic, because everybody has priorities at number one. But to be honest, we have a fair point on saying we do not compromise, because if you look throughout the company, cybersecurity is mentioned everywhere as the top risk, the top agenda. It's everywhere on top. So let's start acting on it. So that's why we say there are no compromises.
Yeah, you already mentioned it, that while we are at a security first strategy, it's always good for us as leader to look further than that. That was our next strategy. And that will indeed be titled as the no compromise strategy. And that strategy will be about those. I think that there's also a turning point in educating people. There's a point in time that you should consider that everybody now knows that certain behavior isn't the desired behavior.
It's a nice bridge.
And then you can be no more the teacher or the nice guy, but then you should I think transform yourself towards a more policeman role. But maybe you were talking about that. But for me, it's very important that you also keep that in mind. There's that this is a phased and a layered strategy.
A layered approach. I mean, security first will only work for so many quarters, so to say. Yeah? We talk about quarters now. And the next step, our future vision is there are no compromises. Because we know and we see that everywhere you look, the cyber resilience part is more and more picking up and more important. Then the quick wins. Of course, it's also my suggestion to look at the quick wins, look at the low-hanging fruits. Easier said than done, but I think you have, if you have a good view on your company, you made a great assessment. We started with phishing, like you already mentioned, is why not take that to a different level? Take that to a different level instead of only talking about security and posting things on our intranet. Yammer is one of our applications we use for that. No, we start executing. And it means that we started setting up within the corporate security team a awareness strategy on phishing. If you look into the market, you can see, okay, if you have a workforce that is not educated at all, then there's an expected click rate or a response rate from X to and if you are further in the process, you will grow. This is what we actually picked up. And we did it very simply by just saying to it ourselves, we will execute simulations and we will train and educate our people throughout the whole year. So again, repetition will make you stronger. And in this case, we actually see the benefits of this. We started off with a huge click rate within the double figures. Still, over 80% of our workforce actually acted upon, so they are behaving well, so to say. And we started also communicating on that, being very transparent on, okay, what did you do? What did it look like? So we are educating our workforce by saying, okay, you just clicked on a phishing link that mimicked a Teams invite, etc. You touched it already. Well, we're here in the office. We have multiple screens all over the office. And we publish everything we do.
The narrowcasting, we call it.
Yeah, we call that narrowcasting. So that's snackable content, as our internal communication gurus say, is that you see for a short period of time, you see the results. We not only share them on the screens in the narrowcasting, but also in the briefings to the managers, to the board, and throughout every office. So I think that's look for the quick wins. That would be the takeaway.
But also those are changing over time. At first they were more about educating.
Yeah.
Now they're way more about the numbers. So I think that is also an evolvement of our program. So when you when you start at a certain maturity level, that's why I thought it's so important to keep on assessing.
Yeah.
Assess your own maturity level of your organization, see where you are and where you want to be. Make that very clear, and then also all your communication evolves with that. We saw that also. First, it was only about what were the do's and don'ts. Don't click, okay, but also don't give over your credentials and all those kind of things. And now we are just at the point, okay, so many people clicked and they don't give their credentials, etc., etc. So we keep also evolving in this approach more and more.
Yeah. And next on the quick win is, okay, look if you can contain. Make sure that you are able to contain quicker. Make sure that you are able to contain incidents, the way you work on incidents. And I think we encountered many. That is not new, I think, because we are a big company, so we will encounter incidents. That's more than normal. But I think we are making real big steps on, okay, again, the security comes first over here. So we are not there yet that we do not have any compromises. But hey, that's something that will always be there. But I think we are really well in containing, making sure that there's a part of containment. Yeah, and the last part I have is it's a balance act. So you always need to, you can feel that. So it's a gut feeling thing, but sometimes it's just a matter of balancing it out, because we know that we don't want to have any compromises in the end. But for now, it is a balancing act between what we do.
It's also about what we just touched upon, the teacher or the policeman. It's not one size fits all. Something that I really think is also important to mention. We saw, for example, that in the finance department, people were very aware and were almost no one clicked. And there were other parts of the company which was a higher click rate. We also wanted to try and make sure that we don't get the one size fits all, but we keep on balancing on putting our efforts and our resources those where they have the highest impact.
Exactly, yeah.
Because I always find that very annoying that if you are at 85% who's doing the right thing, and it's quite annoying that you keep on getting messages, well, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, and et cetera, et cetera. So we really try to keep a balancing act on this matter also. So keeping it enticing to people and making sure that...
it's good that you bring it up. So also that part we make more personal. So we do tailor-made exercises for various departments in which we see, okay, they need more on, if they need more on a training X, we will provide them with it. So we make it really personal also in that sense. And that also, again, touches back on, okay, the personnel is the strongest link. And next to that, they immediately understand why security first is the strategy. So yeah, it benefits both.
Maybe we should look at our host because he is already standing there, because I think that we have a lot of questions.
I have to say, I'm going to come into the picture. So we do have interesting questions. That's
very good.
So I'm going to start by something I think it's a combination of multiple questions, but we're going to go one by one. You mentioned two very important aspects, which is like we want to fail forward, fail fast, so trying new technologies. So one of the questions we got from Frank is like, how to address security risk introduced by experimenting with new unproven technology. I guess that's two sides. Sides operational, you want to be cutting edge and using the best in breed, but also part is security.
Robert can answer this question way better than I can, so I'll give it over quickly to him. But I think it's so important that we at least try doing things. The worst thing you can do is do nothing. And so we really should do something. We should take risks. If you are at a point that you need to step up, then you need to take more risks. And then also everything's on the table. If you look at me, and that's also what we discussed.
Yeah, I think so. And if you talk about technology, that might be a tricky one, because there you should have a more balancing act again. Yeah. And by saying, okay, is this a risk I'm willing to take? But I think we are pretty bold, to be honest. So we dare to take these risks. If there's a possibility to improve ourselves, and it means taking a certain risk, I think you should try it. Yeah, for sure.
Believe me, I agree. I'm coming from the same background.
Yeah, exactly.
But I am just answering more of the questions from the
practically, Ramses, should I stop
sharing?
No.
Okay. Keep it as it is. No worries. So the other thing that we got, it's a bit of a bigger question, so I'm going to dissect it a little bit. From Dick, he says, the presentation is a lot about internal security and policies. The last week, Citizen Lab has published a report, and he has the report. It is called Network Effect of Telecommunication Vulnerabilities for Location Disclosure. how is Vodafone, Ziggo, I guess, because that's not for the Vodafone wider group, protecting us against cross-signaling attacks and global title leasing abuse by third parties? And there is a couple more, so I'm going to just read it for the whole. Can you tell something about security vulnerabilities of the mobile network? Is security first also applied on the mobile network? I totally understand where it's coming from, because we talked more about IT side of
Yeah,
the house.
for me,
He's more into the OT.
question.
Yeah, or the OT side of the house, the operational
I
technology.
think that I have to take this question back, because do you have an answer on this, Amanda?
No,
Because,
not at
for
all.
me,
Yeah.
To be honest, I can help if you guys don't mind. I'm putting here a bit of a one-day-old hat, because I used to be
Yeah.
part of that
Please do.
yesterday.
Please do.
can't forget that fast.
When it comes to mobile, yes. When it comes to mobile networks, well, there is multiple levels of testing, and you can always do multiple levels of testing. One that is being done on the vendor side is the CPE equipment, and your handheld and everything is being tested. So if you talk about the mobile itself, the handset itself, it is tested by the vendor that provides it, whether it's like Google for Pixel, or Apple for iPhone, or others like Huawei and ZTE. How much you trust that, that's another story, and I would leave it for consumers rather than providers. The other point is on the GSM vulnerabilities. Yes, there are, but now we are also in LTE and other technologies, and just like any other technology, once you move from one generation to the other, you introduce new vulnerabilities, and it's not easy to explain over such a webinar these details, because they're very technical. And when you go over into the security of OT, you have to also have a bit of what kind of policies that you tailor for this. Because, for example, let's say, I give a funny example. You have a password policy, right? I assume. And let's say, I don't know it, by the way, but let's say it's like between 10 and 12 characters. You have a, I'm just giving a generic one with capital and small letters, and let's say a special character and a number. But what if one of your maybe here it's more non-telecom, but like what if one of your PLC controllers does not allow except 6? It's an exception. And actually, I'm going to switch over, because we do have a question about the exceptions also, which I think is good that we can answer together. Mark was asking how you deal with policy exceptions. So you have data policy.
Very good question.
And that's why I slipped it, because I am aware in the OT side that there is a lot of issues when it comes to exceptions.
And this is then I'm also over to Robert, because he can tell you a little bit about our process of risk acceptance processes and those kind of things. I think it should be the attitude that this is actually the last thing you do.
Okay.
So we need to really, as security professionals, and I say this in a broader sense, also to myself most of the time, there can be no excuses for policy deviations, because there is a reason why we have these policies, and there is a very strong reason most of the time we have these type of policies. And I know there can be situations in which you say, okay, I'm doing a risk acceptance temporarily, and I mean very temporarily. But the situation in which certain people think that this is the first thing they can do, I think it's a very toxic mindset. So I really want to be clear on that. Robert, we have a formal process for that.
I think that's if you look back a couple of years ago, so to say, then this was the first thing people thought about. Okay, let's sign a risk acceptance and we move on. Yeah, we fill it in, paper exercise. Well, again, touching back on paper exercises, you should.
Listen, how much you're making me happy now. That's the wrong thing to do.
Yeah. So we had a lot of legacy there. What we did over the past year is that exactly what Jure said. This is your last resort, and if in any case it happens, make sure that you have a deadline of X months in there that it needs to be solved, and put it at the business. So the requester is responsible, and so make them owner of it. Because what we saw in the past is that it's being signed, everybody moves on.
Okay.
But
everybody moves on and they forget that there is a risk.
Yes, and sometimes it pops up like a dolphin every year, and then we sign it again. Hey, do not. So if that's happening in your company, we are still cleaning up the legacy. To be honest. Yeah.
I have question coming again from,
Yeah.
let's say, the
But
telecom
there's
background.
definitely a mindset question.
Yeah,
we
this-
saw in the process that lower management could sign these risk assessments, we really made sure that this is at the highest level, at the CTO level,
Yeah.
signing these risk assessments, and they are fully aware what can happen if something goes wrong.
Exactly.
And so we also, from our security perspective, also fill in what can happen there, and they are fully aware what happened. So we also made some changes in there in our communication to make sure that the CTO fully understands what happens.
Yeah, what the risk at hand is.
And there are very clear deadlines, and they are being managed now by my department. That's definitely something different.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
indeed, it was something that you do for yourself, and that can be happening.
Yeah.
Okay, we just got the question, but Dick, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask one thing before we go to that one. You know, I'm coming from a telecom background too, and one of the major issues we have, you guys talked a lot about the people in two senses. One is like the actual workforce for VodafoneZiggo, and how you prepare them and how you make them aware.
Yeah.
And also one of the things that I want to thank you for is like how to make them feel responsible.
Yeah.
Which I love the discussion about the slogan.
Yeah.
But also another thing was like they have the process also easy to use. And one thing I wanted to highlight is the no shame culture that you were talking about. If you made a mistake, it's fine, but at least come forward and say it so we can fix it together.
Of course, we prefer not, but we rather have people doing
Agree.
something and making a mistake than doing nothing.
I would say something, and I hope it doesn't demolish my career. I was doing, not for previous employer, but actually for the one before, I was doing analysis on a malware. And I'm still a human, right? I'm an expert, but still a human. And instead of downloading it to the virtual machine, which is sandboxed, I downloaded it to my own laptop. So it's better to go forward and say this happened than, try and
Then shut down your computer and go home.
yeah, exactly. So I always think it's better if something happened, people come forward. But
For sure.
I want to move back to the technology for 2 minutes because we have a lot of questions about that one. One is like, as a previous telecom operator, it's very hard to find time for patching because
Patch management.
we are a 24/7 service. People connect through us. They don't want their internet down. They don't want the mobile down. Do you guys have any tips and tricks on how you were able to do that? How you were able to get better in this?
I think that, of course, in our patch windows, even we're of course doing that at the low traffic moments. But we have, of course, multiple networks, so people won't know anything about that. You know that better than I do. Also, a lot of patches we receive are being supplied by our vendors. And we have a lot of great vendors like Nokia, like Ericsson, like those kind of parties, as Cisco, like you probably also have the switches, the routers, and those kind of things, and you roll them out within the Windows. So it's not so much as a manual process. Also, most of the time, I see a lot of automated patching happening at the moment. I think that's also a future thing. Yeah, we see also within our Qualys tooling we have. I think it's great tooling, by the way. That's also automated patching and those kind of things really happening. And I think that's also the future. So doing that faster, doing that better, and making sure we get our network at the highest state possible.
That brings me to the next one. And again, I apologize that your question is a bit parked, but for 2 moments, I'll come back to it.
We have time, right?
We have 15 minutes, don't worry. Okay. So talking about the future, a lot of us are looking into integrating, basically streamlining security into the DevOps. So on VodafoneZiggo, did you guys go into this? Not yet.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you have any challenges? Do you have any also tips and tricks? Because I feel like the cybersecurity strategy first is a nice slogan, and it gets a mindset the correct way. And of course, by GDPR, you need security by design, privacy by design. But then I always ask the question: how do you streamline it in the process?
Will you take this one, or
You take it.
And we're working. Rob also already said that we're working very agile, and I think that this is a combination that DevOps you should do on both managers. You should do the technical part, but you should also do the organizational part. And what I mean by that, by the organizational part, is what I think is best is that you have multidisciplinary teams. So they are working within what I think they call the tribes, working together. So you have people from marketeers, working together with people from technology, working from security, everyone in that same tribe, working on that same value stream or on that same product. And I think that's amazing. That's how that works.
That is really good. But like from a technology aspect, did you try to embed into the, let's say, the delivery streams, any special tools, maybe code review automated or stuff like that? Or you leave that to the tribes?
I'm a little bit far from.
I know. That's why I said, like, if you can give some hints, that would be nice. Yeah. Another thing, I think there is a question here from Dick. I'm coming finally to the question. How is VodafoneZiggo preparing for NIS 2, which will come in effect next year?
Yeah, of course. Well, it is already effective, I think, and we need to have an implementation year.
Yeah.
That's I think in October 2024 it needs to be implemented.
Fully effective. Yeah. And we have the RDI, former Agentschap Telecom, of course, as a supervisory authority. And we are working and implementing those measures, of course, also a lot. And what I say is, well, in the end, if you look at the NIS2, we can always do like it's totally something new, right? But in a way, it's not mentioning very strange or exotic aspects. So doing more about your risk management. Well, I think we should do that. We already just mentioned something that you should do with the risk acceptance process when you have policy deviations, but it's also then the way you are doing it. So I think it's not so much about complying to a specific law, but also living up to the expectation of our customers. So if you are only doing, well, like an important topic of the NIS2 is of course the risk management part, and we should improve that way more, but you really should live up to that. So what we are trying to do is not only of course being compliant, because we should, it's an obligation, but also really make sure that we show our business why it is so important and why they are doing and why this is the right thing to do. So not ticking the box, but really making sure that we are living up to it, that we are doing the right things, and that this law is for me more a driver and something that maybe accelerates certain aspects, definitely. But in the end, it is you need to have a very stable and reliable network, and that's what our customers want. They want to have a safe network. They want to have a safe experience, and that's what we are going to deliver. And that, for me, is the most important topic.
Yeah, exactly. We use it as an accelerator to make sure that we can do certain things.
It always helps if you can say, okay, it needs to be done for this too, but. Well, we have all the tools. That's not an issue.
I always think that GDPR was also used to push the
practices.
Of course. Whenever like a new regulation comes to play, it's not that we don't know what to do. We just push to do the things that was.
In the end, very little changes. They had a huge impact, but very little changes in previous law, the BBP, the Beschermingspersoonsgegevens. And I think that this is now the same as well. You know, have an obligation to comply to the RVIT. We have an obligation to Vodafone Group to have a certain NIS. No, not NIS, but what's always the NIST. Yeah, NIST framework. We have a place about. It is more or less the same as we previously were doing for accountants. It's more of the same. But again, it's like just with the GDPR, the fines are way higher. There's also a change, of course, in this too. There's a necessity to call the regulator, to call the FSC.
I guess without the disclosure. Actually, I was going about that, and then
we also were going
and wanted to ask, like, I know it's not easy to come out in the let's say in the market, whether VodafoneZiggo or any other company, and say we had this incident that happens. But I also have to say that you guys did it when it was needed. So maybe two sides of the story. One is generic, so don't take it about something that happened. It's just a generic question. When you have a security incident, how is the thought process of, we should go public with this or not? I think that question is not, I mean, of course, if the law asks for it public, it will happen. But I'm talking about if it's not required by law, and how do you determine which way? It's more of a thought process.
It depends on the case by case, of course. So every incident is different. But I think transparency is very important, because it would be very strange if VodafoneZiggo wouldn't have incidents. And we would. So I think it's very logic that you step out and make clear what happened.
Yeah, I think it's almost immoral
Yeah.
not mentioning to the public.
Yeah.
I'm
Because
so happy to hear
there's
that.
already, or there's one thing you need to consider is, or two things you need to consider. First is, can it affect my customers?
Yeah.
Can they take measures to protect themselves for whatever? And second, can you help other companies?
Yep.
Because if there's, a zero day found at our organization, then I think it's very normal that we communicate thoroughly about that.
Yeah,
And,
they
if
say
there was an
more, we
incident,
don't. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, and if there was an incident, like for example the Blau incident, that was way into the media, of course. I think it's important that people know that they have been involved, that they get a letter that they have been involved, and that they can take their own measures. Because I really think it's immoral. We live in a democracy, and then we should be transparent also as a company. And I think the worst thing you can do is cover it up and.
No, but my question was not about covering it up, but sometimes, maybe the incident is small enough and contained, it does not really need a public statement. Sometimes not. And I was more like seeing how you can measure it.
Yeah, okay, but if it
Yeah.
only creates panic,
Yeah,
of
then,
course, then you should think about it. But that's something that you should do from an ethical point of view, and that's worth a very forward discussion into your company within multidisciplinary. I think that's not something that I can do by myself, but it's something that a wide range of professionals should have an opinion about. And then you say, okay, we're going to do this and that. And if in the end, then the conclusion is, well, this creates only distrust, or maybe even other people get some ideas to also abuse this vulnerability, then
better keep it.
Yeah, then you can better take other measures, I think.
Maybe that's not really 100% something you can answer, but I wanted to ask it anyway. How do you feel about the media handling such cases? Because I feel sometimes the media, they love, the emotional part. They
Sure.
overblow it, and then
There's so much news. If you bring it only from a content side, then it gets snowed under, and then nobody gets out. So I think there is also two sides on this. I think that the media fulfills a very important role in a democracy,
of course,
and it's very important that they have a story. And if the story nobody can relate to, then I'd rather have a story that come across a little bit than otherwise. That's one part, and of course the other part is it's always difficult to make nuances once it's in the media and you don't get an opportunity to mention this. It's I can imagine that it's a very at least a very conflicting situation most of the time.
Yep.
But we have external comms, of course, we're working very closely with. It's even within our business unit. This is also a multidisciplinary topic. I think as a security professional, you should work with external communication. And our spokesperson, our word for this, our spokesperson, they are making sure that the right message being framed.
So these decisions are made in unison, so to say, together with all the experts. So we have a say in that, external comms have a say in that, but also other parties. So it's if things like these happen, external comms or the spokespersons, in our case, actually reach out to all the experts. You are coming together and come up with a statement.
I want to close with a couple of questions, two different topics. Third-party risk, because that's you just mentioned Blau. So it's like I know for a fact that you guys have a process for this, but like, did you find any maybe formula for enhancing that?
Yeah,
because I can imagine new vendors means procurement, like a lot of down the chain departments. So if you have something to add to this, that would be really great. Helping getting it into
one, but maybe Robert.
You start.
It's for me. I think that, and I'm saying this in a broader sense. I think that most of the time, outsourcing starts from a cost perspective.
Exactly.
But you should start outsourcing from a strategic perspective. So can I get better quality? Can I accelerate certain things? And not only think about cost. So for me, if that is taken into account, then it has a very, very, very strong opportunity. If you start right, so if you start with the right baseline of, okay, this is a third party that has certain expertise I don't have. This is a third party that has a strong base of knowledge or whatsoever, that they can add specific value that you can do yourself. Then it is very opportune to outsource. And if you then outsource, then there is an inherent risk. what we saw with Blau, for example, this was a subcontractor of Blau. So for us, it was the subcontractor. Yeah, well, I think I'm here in a room in a safe place. It's being publicized on YouTube, I think.
It will be later on.
This, but I think it's so hard to stay fully in control
I agree.
as any company at all, because and even if you do, even if you are able to manage the subcontractor of your contractor, then I don't believe that it will be any cost efficient at all, because that's very difficult to do.
That's a lot to do.
But I also see a lot of our lights go
Right,
off. Are we off time already?
No, it's still 3 minutes to go to 8. But we're still visible.
But so I think that outsourcing should be done from a strategic perspective and not being done from a cost perspective, because then you don't have a chance at all. And of course, you should do all the law obligations you have, so you should know about all your third-party contractors. But yeah, in the end, I don't know if you have asked that ever from Microsoft. Okay, give me, and in case of the GDPR, all the subcontractors you're using of, and you get
a lot of papers.
What kind of assurance do you get by then? Yeah, for me, it's maybe not the right thing to discuss here, but
no, I agree. There is, like, it's a paper exercise. It has its own value still if you really have to litigate at some point, or if you get litigated. But sometimes from a technical aspect, then it just doesn't add.
And also, but it can also add some certain value. Like, for example, there is certain security measures Microsoft can take, for example, in their data centers, like, for example, building own hardware, which we can do simply, because we are too small. We can build our own hardware there, and then they are able to do that. So I think also outsourcing, if you look at that perspective, and if you're saying I'm working at a little bit smaller company, and I know that Microsoft has 2,000 ISOs, and I'm doing this by myself, and it can be a very reasonable move to outsource it to that kind of third party. So as long as you're doing it from any other perspective than cost, then I think it's good. Then you're good.
That's good news. So we have time for one more question. If
Ja,
anyone...
ik ben niet verbonden met het internet, maar het is raar. Ik heb gewoon wel 4G.
Sorry, I think someone unmuted by mistake.
Ik zit nu op de wifi, dus ze zouden toch
Sorry.
connectie moeten hebben.
Sorry, can you please send
Ja, ik ben
your...
verbonden met internet.
Something is wrong.
Yeah.
I think, yes. Sorry. If you can send the last question, because we couldn't hear you here by text, I would be thankful.
I hope very soon.
Yeah, I hope so too.
I hope so.
That's
a great loss. A great loss. But
that's a different story. I don't think this is for this webinar. But yeah, I would like to thank you so much for tonight. Really very insightful, and I think
great.
Cybersecurity needs to be first on the agenda. So
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ramsey, for
and I would like to thank everyone who's attending with us. Have a great evening, and we need to see you next week. We do have a nice webinar for you, and also don't forget 16th of November we have the risk event. It's not a live event; it's a physical one in Spant in Bussum. Hope to see you there. Don't forget to register. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks. Take care.
Bye.